Welcome to our sponsored programs, Budgeting Basics. These videos are designed to help you understand the budgeting process and enable you to create a draft budget for your sponsored project. Today we will be talking about participant support costs. These videos don't replace working with the grants specialists. Our grants specialists here in OSP are experts in the nuances of uniform guidance and know details beyond what we will get into here. They also read through the rules for your specific program to make sure to catch any unique rules that apply. Your assigned grants specialist will work with you individually to construct a budget that meets your needs and complies with all the sponsor and JMU rules and regulations. Having said that, we know there are a lot of questions around where numbers come from, and folks would like to be able to put together draft budgets. For example, to estimate the costs for your project to know if it's too ambitious for the program you're considering. So these videos will give you an overview to help you get started. The biggest confusion we see with participant support costs is about what they actually are. So we will start with that question, and actually with the question of who even is a participant. And we'll begin by saying who is not a participant. An employee can never be a participant. Secondly, if you're doing human subjects research, your subjects are also not participant. So then, who are participants? They are non-employees who are receiving a service or training at something like a workshop, a conference, a seminar, or a training project that is funded by the grant. The key thing here is that they are recipients, not providers of the training, and they do not deliver services to the project. So human subjects cannot be participants because they provide a service, namely giving you the data that you need. Employees also can never be recipients. Note further that this means that if you're hosting a conference or seminar, your speakers also cannot be participants. So then what's an example of where you might have participants? Let's say you are applying to the NSF and part of your broader impacts involves training high school teachers in some topic. Those teachers very well could be participants. Or you might be running a program that brings high school students to campus for a workshop. They also could be participants. So now that we know who a participant is, then what are participant support costs? Participant support costs are direct approved expenses for participants to participate in those workshops, conferences, seminars, or training projects. These could be stipends, travel costs, registration fees, meals, lodging, and similar costs to these. If you're working with our NSF or R&R budget templates, you'll see that we already have lines for participant support costs, and I'll show you where in those templates in a minute. However, if you're working with our generic budget template, we don't already have those lines built in. Typically, you don't need it if you're working with our generic budget template. However, if you do need participant support costs in that template, you can always add lines, and your grant specialist will be happy to help you. Find these templates? Well, from our homepage, you can go to Budget Development and then Overview Templates and Resources. Scrolling down, you can find this template section where you would see our NSF budget template as well as our R&R budget template. Here is our NSF budget template. Participant support costs are here in section F, where we ask you to identify whether the participant support costs are stipends, travel, subsistence, or other. Here is our R&R budget template. Here, participant support costs are in section E, and you'll see that there's an additional category, tuition. This just has to do with the types of grants that these are typically used for. Regardless of which template you use, for participant travel, please follow the procedures outlined in our travel video. As with any other cost, you can just enter the values for each year in the appropriate box, and they will be added to the total within the template. There's some other pieces of information you should know about participant support costs. First of all, these are excluded from the indirect cost calculation. When the modified total direct costs are calculated, these are not included. For more information on this, please see our indirect costs video. Because of this, it's very important to make sure that anything going into participant support costs is indeed classified correctly. Your assigned grant specialist will assist with this. A consequence of this is that participant support costs are generally isolated when it comes to the budget. You cannot move funds in or out easily. In fact, you generally need to submit a prior approval request to move any funds out of participant support costs to other categories, such as personnel costs or travel for PIs. Although usually you can rebudget between the participant support cost subcategories without a prior approval. This would be changing a participant support cost stipend to participant support cost travel. As always, though, reach out anytime you have a question or need with rebudgeting, and be sure to follow any specific guidance from your sponsor or OSP. Okay, as we finish this video, one thing I want to come back to is those other costs that we started with. So we've learned that they're not participant support costs, but where could you put them on your budget? If you were watching this video to learn about human subjects research incentives or speaker honoraria, usually those would go into other direct costs and often within the other category within other direct costs. If you are looking to pay student employees, or any other employee for that matter, that needs to go in personnel costs, even if they are going to be paid via stipend. You can learn more about personnel costs in our associated videos. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to assisting you with your budget. Please reach out to us at any time with questions.